Greetings, programs. This is Zach W. Lorton with Backburner Games, and welcome to the next episode of the Backburner Games video podcast. I am excited to bring this episode to you because it's my second top 10 list. The last top 10 list, we talked about games I've only played one time, and I'm dying to get back to the table. Today, we're talking about games I've only played one time and don't care if I ever play again. In fact, I'm really sure that I don't ever want to play these games again. I haven't been in the gaming industry nearly as long as many of you have, so I haven't played every game that there is. My exposure is relatively low. However, I do have 10 games on this list. The top 5 are games that I don't ever want to play again. Full stop. No, I'm sorry. If my wife came up to me and said, "Hey, honey, do you want to play a board game?" Sure, it's one of these 5. No, I don't. The bottom 5, 6 through 10, are games that I probably would play if they were the only games available, but I'd prefer not to. I've got reasons for my choices, and we'll go over all those reasons. So let's jump into it, shall we?
Number 10.
At number 10, number 10, I can't say it right. Number 10 is a really simple, small roll and write called QUACK. QUACK is from GameRight Games, and if you're going to learn a roll and write game, this is probably one of the simplest games that you can learn. The reason I don't really want to play this game again is because I've played other roll and writes that are so much better than this. This is pretty themeless. Granted, Farkle is themeless, and I'd still prefer to play Farkle over this because it takes a little bit longer, but with so many great roll and write games out there right now, and draw and write games, the fact that QUACK is available is good if you're playing with people that don't like to play typical strategy games or modern board games, but I'd rather not play it if I could keep from it. So QUACK's my number 10.
Number 9.
Number 9 is a little game from Castle Games, and I picked it up at Gen Con when I went in 2015, I think it was. I don't even remember what year it was. I stopped by Castle Games' booth, and they had Fleet Admiral for sale. Fleet Admiral is a really cool-looking space semi-cooperative board game in which you are building up your ships, upgrading your ships, and then dealing with a crisis collectively with everybody. Here's the problem with this particular game. It's got a push your luck mechanic in it. Part of the push your luck is that you roll an 8-sided die, and this determines whether you're going to add a component to your ship or you're going to add personnel. You can only add certain components once you've reached a certain level. You can only add certain personnel once you've reached a certain level, and if the first card you draw is a 3 and you can only build a 1, you can't do anything that turn. Period. And you go back and forth. It's very, very slow at the beginning. Plus, there are 2 symbols on the 8-sided die that you roll that indicate whether you get an automatic success or an automatic failure. So on your very first roll, you could fail right away and not even get a chance to see what the card is and whether or not it would work. So it's close, it's almost there. And I probably would play it again with some house rules because once you get into the game, it's actually pretty cool. And the semi-cooperative aspect of the game is great. Plus the artwork is really cool. It's got this 1960s kind of Art Deco almost, early sci-fi, whimsical retro look to it that just kind of screams Star Trek or other generic space things. There's just kind of a cool look to it, and I like it for that reason. So I'd play it again if I needed to, but otherwise, it's not one that I'm going to be seeking out. Fleet Admiral, my number 9.
Number 8.
At number 8 is a game I really wanted to like, and in fact, I actually do like this game, but there's so much going against it that makes me not want to play it again. And that's First Martians, Adventures on the Red Planet. I got this through a contest, and then I found out why they were giving it away. The first time I played through the introductory scenario, it took me 4 hours to set the game up, learn how to play it, play through it, get used to the app. I know not every game is going to be as long as the first time you play the game. That'll come up later. As big and beautiful as this game is, you've got amazing components and great boards and amazing cubes and these little bitty cough drop lozenges that you use for your workers. They look so tasty and you want to eat them. Why do I always think about food? But the process of playing the game, it leaves a little bit to be desired. I wish I had played Robinson Crusoe before I played this, because then I would be able to know for myself whether or not this is the type of game that would work for me. As much as I like science fiction, and as much as I like the idea of working corporately, collectively, together to fight against things that are happening to you, I've got a few games like this. Pandemic, The Captain is Dead, Damage Report, all science fiction games. Although Pandemic is probably less science fiction than actual reality. So I thought I would like First Martians more than I did, and the gameplay was all right. If it's going to take me as long as it's going to set up a game, even if I'm playing it solo, I'd rather spend the time playing a game that is going to be a little bit more engaging, a little bit more involving, and has fewer bells and whistles. As odd as that is to say about games that where, you know, the more the bling, the better the thing. It's too much of an investment in time for me to get out and set up and play every single time I'm thinking about it. So, First Martians. If somebody else has a copy and they want to set it up with me and play with me again, fine, yeah, I'll play it again. But other than that, yeah, probably not. First Martians. My number 8.
Number 7.
At number 7 on this list is a game I played for the first time at Geekway to the West, and all due respect to Druid City Games, you guys make absolutely beautiful looking games. The GRIMM Forest is not enough game for the bling, at least not for me. I think the theme in this game is really, really cool. The mechanics are highly abstract, and the theme kind of feels a little bit pasted on. It makes sense in some ways, but when we played it, it seemed a little bit disappointing. I've played other games that have the same kind of mechanic before. Maybe I just don't like the mechanic in the game. But the other thing that kind of drove it home for me was that this game is so decked out with the components. The components in this are top notch. The game trays, brand trays that are in there, that come in the package and help you organize everything when it's put together. The artwork is really cool looking. The fact that your goal is to build a house is kind of neat. And this is a lightweight game. And for a game that's so lightweight and it's got such a lightweight theme, I think $50 might be a little bit too much of a price tag, which is why I'd probably play this game if it only cost $40 or if it only cost $35 and it didn't have quite so many blinged out components. But that's me. I don't know what it is about it, and it could be a combination of light mechanics and light theme. The theme is not my favorite. In the first place, I'm not a huge fan of Grimm Fairy Tales. As an accessible game, I think it's great. If you're going to play this with families and use this game to teach other people how to play a modern board game, by all means, go for it. It just doesn't trip my trigger. And unfortunately for that reason, it lands at number 7 on my list.
Number 6.
At number 6, this isn't so much one game as it is a series of types of games. And I played this at a game night a couple months ago, and it wasn't bad, but it's not a game that I usually tend to enjoy. The game in question was Adventure Games Monochrome Inc. from Cosmos, but I would have to lump this in with escape room games of pretty much any kind. I have tried to play a couple of the Unlock games, and it seemed to be frustrating. Don't get me wrong, I love escape rooms, I love puzzles. I've done an escape room in person before. I took my nephews to a Christmas-themed one in St. Louis. They based one on Elf, the movie with Will Ferrell. Part of the fun in that was that the three of us got to throw our ideas off of each other. We tried different things. One of us would think of something that the other one wouldn't, and it was a lot of fun. So if you're going to play a game like this, I would highly recommend doing it with a group of people rather than just by yourself. I tend to play games solo. In this particular game, it requires somebody to look through an adventure book and to read certain things off. You kind of need somebody who pays very close attention to detail, and we didn't necessarily have that, and it kind of soured the experience for me. Now, I know you're out there saying, well, if you've only played a game one time and you didn't have a good experience, you need to play it a second time. I already know that this isn't exactly my style of game, my flavor of game, and after having played a few escape room board games and then trying this one, it's not for me. If it's the only thing available and somebody wants to play something and my only other option is to not play with people or play something solo, I'll probably jump in and play with other people. But other than that, I'm okay with not playing it again. This is my number 6, Adventure Games Monochrome Inc. from Cosmos. Okay, so those were 10. Those were 10 through 6. Now we're getting into the top 5. These are the games that I really don't ever want to play again if I can keep from it. Hang on, because I don't think you're going to like number 5.
Number 5.
At number 5, I was really excited about playing this game with other people for the first time because it's a tile laying game, and it's a game about building your own city, actually building your own suburbs. It's Suburbia from Bezier Games. I really like the concept behind this game. I really like the fact that you are building your own little city and that points that you earn can not only depend on what you build and where you build it, but what other people around you are building as well. I think it would be cooler if this was something that was, you were all trying to build one giant city together that's somehow connected in a central hub. There's already a game like that. It's called Carcassonne. And Carcassonne, to me, knocks this out of the park. When I found out Suburbia was a Mensa Select game, I was kind of excited to give it a shot and see what happens with it. But the one time that I played it with other people, I was playing with AP gamers. These are guys who were meticulous about the numbers and meticulous about everything, and every move they make was trying to be the most efficient that they could be, and it seemed like it took forever. It kind of took the joy and the fun out of the game for me. Obviously their goal was to win, and my goal is to win every game that I play as well, but sometimes I rely more on the theme and rely more on the story that the game tells more than just the mechanics. And am I doing the best thing I can to push the cubes around and everything else like that? It was a rough play, and economic games I'm fine with. I don't have a problem with math. This one seemed to have a little too much to balance. It kind of just sucked the joy out of the game for me. And so that's why Suburbia falls at number 5 on my list.
Number 4.
At number 4, CTHULHU. CTHULHU is a theme of CHEZ, which is kind of an offshoot of the Munchkin brand games, and it actually comes from the same publisher, Steve Jackson Games. I like the idea and I like the concept and the theme of CHEZ and CTHULHU. It throws the Cthulhu mythos into this geeky culture type thing. The problem is, in the end, it's a game about math. As you get closer and closer to the end, it becomes about what are the numbers, and what do the numbers say, and what do the numbers do, and the theme just kind of gets lost. I did find this when I was playing Munchkin as well, when I played regular Munchkin, and when I played Marvel Munchkin, and when I played another skin of Munchkin. After a while, the novelty of it wears off because you're worried about who's going to win. This game went on for about 15 minutes longer than it really needed to. By the end, everybody was done with it. I passed it along to somebody else, and I hope they enjoy it better than I did. CTHULHU, number 4.
Number 3.
At number 3 on my list is a real-time game that I thought that I would really like, because I like real-time games. Damage Report is one of my favorite real-time games. The problem is nobody would ever want to play it because the artwork looks like excrement. I love real-time games. I love Fuse. I love games like that where you're fighting against the clock. 5-Minute Dungeon is one of my favorite real-time games in the world. So I really thought that I would like METEOR from Mayday Games. When I bought it, I found out how to play, and it's way too complicated for a game that's only supposed to take 5 minutes to play. In fact, it takes less than 5 minutes to play because while you're playing the game, there's a mechanic that tells you if something happens, knock down one of the 1-minute timers, turn over the next 1-minute timer. So it's not exactly 5 minutes. You could be, 2 minutes and 40 seconds left, and then when this condition is met, you clear out that second and go 2 minutes. And that's hard to do when you create a version of the game that they call a mini that doesn't include the sand timers. It doesn't make sense to me. And so if you play that game mechanically with like a timer on your phone or something like that, you gotta stop the timer, you gotta blah, blah, blah. You lose some of the urgency. You lose some of the real-timedness of the game. Plus, there's just so much going on in the game, so many different cards and so many different things that if you're gonna play it, you really have to know everything in the game, because otherwise people are just gonna be stopping and asking questions the entire time. And it's just a little too complicated for what it is. My number 3 on this list, METEOR.
Number 2.
At number 2 on this list is a really small card game that is currently ranked 14,949 on Board Game Geek, and it came out in 2010. Why anybody would want to play this game, I don't know. QUACK in the Box. If you've never heard of this game, thank God. QUACK in the Box is a game about medical malpractice. It's a game where a patient comes in with a problem, and you see if you can overcome that problem in the way that earns you the most money possible. To me, this is not a theme that needs to be in a game. I'm all for medical themes. I'm all for themes about doctors and hospitals and nurses and the work that they do, because I don't think there's enough of it. And I know a lot of healthcare professionals in my life. I think a good game about the healthcare profession could do for healthcare what Flashpoint Fire Rescue did for firefighters. It's not an easy job. QUACK in the Box takes that job and it literally turns it on its ear and says, forget the Hippocratic Oath, we're going to do the worst job we can to pilfer the most money out of people. For a funny experiment, that's fine, but for a game that takes 45 minutes to play, it felt like a slog. It felt like the worst game in the world. Not just the theme, but also mechanically. There were a lot of turns where I just couldn't do anything, and it became boring watching other people go through it. QUACK in the Box is not a game that I would recommend to anybody, and yet it is at number 2 on my list of games that I don't ever want to play again. Why is that?
Number 1.
I'm gonna get some hate for this. I'm gonna upset a lot of people. Even the people who are like, not every board game is for everybody, might look at me and go, what are you thinking? I really wanted to like this game. The goal and the theme didn't appeal to me. I liked the fact that it was science fiction. I liked the fact that it was set in outer space. And I was excited to play it because so many people told me how fun they thought the game was. And I did not have a good time at all playing Terraforming Mars. The components aren't great. The gameplay is supposed to be fantastic. It didn't feel that way. And for a game that took us 3.5 hours to play, I wanted to be more satisfied. This is kind of like eating a dinner and not being full and not knowing why, knowing that the food was supposed to be really good, but for some reason it didn't just trip your trigger. Why does everything I do compare with food? I love engine builders. I love being able to build the engine and see it go. It felt like it took too long to get the engine built so that you could do anything with it, and by the time you're ready for everything to just fire off and go, the game's over. And because the game lasted 3.5 hours, that put a gun to the head of this game and just pulled the trigger. I can't bring myself to play Terraforming Mars ever again. I went to a board game meetup several months ago. There was a group of people playing Terraforming Mars, and they played 3 games of Terraforming Mars that night. Apparently, they do this every single week. They get together and they play Terraforming Mars. That's it. And that's all they play. Sometimes they play it 4 or 5 times in a row, and they speed play through it because they love the game, and I'm all for it if that's what trips your trigger. This one just did not do it for me. I wanted to like it, didn't, can't, don't think I ever will. And again, to those of you who are saying, oh, you got to play it more than one time. No, I don't. I really don't. My number 1 on this list, Terraforming Mars. So comment below, what's on your list? What game have you played one time and you never, ever, ever want to play again? I think there's something to be said for giving a game a second shot. If you like the theme or you like the concept and you didn't do well and something just didn't sit well with you and you want to give it another shot, that's great. In these particular cases, I know what I know, and I know that these are games that I don't want to play again. So comment below if you've got a game that you've played only once and never want to play again, or if there's any particular games that you will play if there's nothing else to play, but you'd really rather not. I'd like to hear your feedback. If you would like to know what's going on with me with Backburner Games, you can visit my Patreon at patreon.com/backburnergames. I produce role-playing game content. You can get for as low as $3 a month, unique role-playing game content every single month. I create role-playing games that are narrative-driven and rules-light, so this you can get them to the table easier and introduce the fun of role-playing games to people who've never played before. I really enjoy bringing story to the table, and I hope I can help you with your friends and family, help you build more gaming people in your life. This is Zach Lorton with the Backburner Podcast, signing off, saying thank you. See you next time.
This podcast copyright Backburner Productions 2020. All rights reserved, Callahan. Oh yeah? What about the rights of that little girl? All games, titles, images, video, and music featured in this podcast are the property of the copyright owners and not the creator of this podcast. Get original tabletop RPG content every month by supporting Backburner Games on Patreon at patreon.com/backburnergames.
Want lovers, you want it, lovers, you want it, lovers, you want it, lovers, you want it, lovers, you want it now.